Hey guys, what's up? This is Tyler from Animator Kid, and today I'm going to finish answering the question, is the Federation in Star Trek communist? Now in part 1, we discussed the traits of the United Federation of Planets and whether they lined up with the central tenets of Marxist communist thought. What we discovered is that although there are similarities in the technological, economic, and social aspects of both systems, politically the UFP is a democratic federal republic. So what, if any, political science terms describe the economy of the Federation? Essentially, Earth in this future timeline is a post-scarcity utopia in which a superabundance of resources is shared amongst the population. But how does that jive with the democratic government that we see in many countries today? Believe it or not, there is a political science term that more or less describes this kind of system: democratic socialism. Now, you may have heard US Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders describe himself as a democratic socialist, but he's actually wrong about that. See, Bernie is more of a social democrat as opposed to a democratic socialist. Not only is there a difference between those two things, that difference is actually vast. Social democracy advocates for a mix of capitalism and socialism, i.e. private enterprise still exists, but just with some government checks, and few programs like healthcare and education off the table. This is in contrast to laissez-faire, which is basically unregulated capitalism. Democratic socialism, on the other hand, is inherently anti-capitalist and seeks to replace capitalism with common ownership. Sound familiar? In fact, there are a lot of countries around the world where democratic socialist parties have governed, including Ecuador, Nicaragua, Bolivia, Peru, Greece, Venezuela, Brazil, and Northern Ireland. This system is distinguished from the Soviet model in that government is democratically elected instead of totalitarian. The issue here, though, is that most definitions of democratic socialism are actually opposed to central planning of the economy, and as I mentioned earlier, the Federation Council has a role in determining the distribution of resources. There is one definition, though, that does allow for central planning, and that's a definition that's written by Robert M. Page of the University of Birmingham about the politics of Britain during the first few years following World War II. This included a strong welfare state, redistribution of goods, and limited government ownership of the means of production. If you look at the democratically elected government of the Federation as a body of the people, then government and common ownership can kind of mean the same thing, especially in terms of essential needs like food and shelter and clothing. But democratic socialist societies still use money as a means of exchange, particularly for luxuries. Maybe this is where the credit comes back in, but then again, that still goes against the predominant philosophy of the accumulation of wealth, and that material things are not as fulfilling in human society anymore. So is the Federation in Star Trek socialist? Kind of. Is it democratic socialist? Kind of. The government is still federal, with member states existing semi-autonomously, and that manages a superabundance of resources equally distributed among a population that enjoys ultimate liberty and finds self-fulfillment in benefiting the community without a profit motive. The closest nations on Earth today that exhibit anything close to democratic socialism are actually unitary states, except for Brazil, but Brazil's government is complicated. However, we do note that the Federation is not unitary, unlike, say, the Klingon Empire. In fact, the Federation is a mix of all the political science terms that we've discussed in the past couple of videos. Communist in that there are no social classes or exploitation of labor, and instead common ownership of goods produced by technology. Socialist in that there is some central planning of the economy, although not a welfare state, because welfare implies money, which implies capitalism. Democratic in that the governing body is an elected body of the people. That's the government, though. The economy is unlike anything we've ever seen, in which people work together to better themselves and their community, without having to worry about acquiring basic needs, or really anything else. It's inherently utopian, sure, and maybe even a bit out of reach, although one has to hope that we can muster the courage to one day get there. So that's my best stab at answering the general question of what kind of government is the Federation in Star Trek. Truly, it's a government and a society and an economy that we've never achieved, and again, maybe never will achieve, but it's arguably the most appealing future society presented by science fiction. That is, unless you're a libertarian, in which case you would be disappointed to find out that in the Star Trek universe, Fort Knox has been converted into a museum. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had a lot of fun putting this video together and I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and share this video, and you can follow me on social media at these sites. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to be awesome. Live long and prosper.